Hi everyone, let's have a bit of a chat, okay? I'll just give it a couple of minutes for people to come in. And I'm just going through the comments on the page here. And I noticed we must have a Liberal troll within our ranks here. I keep seeing comments. I will remove this person eventually, but yeah, so this person, Carol King, in regards to pensioners being put on the cashless debit card. Liars, another Medicare campaign. And I've come across this comment in a couple of our posts. And I've just replied to her, but Medicare came true. Don't I know about it? Have a stroke, and then you've got to wait 6 weeks to get an MRI, and it's not bulk billed. Fun, not. You know what I mean? Dear, oh dear. But we keep getting the odd one here and there. And I just find it annoying. I am going to actually remove her because I'm sick of these people. Her name's Carol King. If you come across her and she just puts up, lie, another Medicare campaign. That's all they've got. All right? We know that the LNP will roll this card out to everybody they possibly can. And their intention is to put age pensioners on it. That's why they put them in the bill. You know? And it was only because of a deal done in the back room with Centre Alliance that the 740 age pensioners on the basics card in the Northern Territory at the moment are not on the cashless debit card. But I'm sure, you know, a bit of writing legislative instrument or whatever, things will change if the LNP get a chance to do so. They didn't put age pensioners in the legislation for fun. You know, they didn't, you know. Yeah. And some of these people, so I found her post under a video from Queensland State Parliament because on December the 1st, Brittany Lauger MP from Queensland State Labor actually raised the issue about the cashless debit card in Queensland State Parliament in regarding to the LNP state branch taking a vote to roll it out across Queensland to start off with. You know, they want it for Toowoomba and Gladstone to start off with, and Ipswich. All right? Let's not give them that. Let's vote them out, get rid of them. Get rid of One Nation as well. Definitely got to get rid of One Nation. And Clive Palmer, don't let him in the door at all. You know, Craig Kelly and all this lot, all leading their people like lambs to the slaughter. So, yeah, a bit of an update yesterday on our card holder that couldn't pay rent. The funds transfer that she was waiting on finally came through after 8 p.m. last night, still landing her a day in arrears of rent, which means that next month, you know, after the next 28-day cycle when she goes to pay her rent again, she will still be 1 day in arrears with her rent. And this is really stressing her out because she's sick of being in arrears for the whole time. Considering they've already made her homeless from one place, she was in arrears at another place for the whole time of the tenancy there, and now she's in arrears the whole time of the tenancy, the places she's got. She's really over it, and I don't blame her. You know, and it's ridiculous with the amount of money that's trapped on her card. They won't let her pay bloody rent on time. So it's deliberate to destroy people's rental histories and credit ratings. That's all I can say. It is just purely deliberate. You know, and to cause people to breach lease contracts, it's wrong. It is just wrong. So, I saw that National Council of Single Mothers and Their Children have put up a link for, it's a survey for the National Auditor because they're doing another look at the cashless debit card. So Australia's National Auditor will have another look at the cashless debit card program, and there's a survey there that people can take, especially if you're on the cards. you know, because they want to hear from people on the cashless debit card as well. So that's there. And our friend from New South Wales, Ryan, sent me a photo of him wearing one of our shirts. So I posted that to the page today. So, not much more happening at the moment. Holly Hughes was jumping up and down in the Telegraph. What is it? The Daily Telegraph. Jumping up and down about Labor telling lies, blah, blah, blah. Well, we know that's not true. You know, they're getting upset. They can jump and stamp and whatever they like. But what gets me is if you ring an LNP member, you'll just get read the same script over and over and over again. They don't even know what's in the bill, most of them. Most of them have never even read it. They don't even care. They've got their fixed script to read from, and that's it. You know what I mean? And they just don't give a damn. And even if you show them the evidence, they'd stick to their script. They stick to their script. So, yeah. What can I say? But yeah, if you see Carole King around the place, on any page, just be aware that she's a LNP troll, obviously. And I have banned her from the page, and I've been deleting her comments. Okay, guys. Well, I'm a bit tired. I'll let you go back to doing whatever you're doing, but I just thought I'd let you know that Medicare came true, and people need to understand that. Okay, so when people, if you hear the LNP lie of, oh, Labor's lying, it's like Medicare, right? Well, hang on. Bill Shorten held up the list of all the cuts to Medicare that were going to come. Liberals said it was Medicare, right? And now we've had all those cuts. And there's a lot of people being impacted and not being able to afford MRIs, scans, blood tests, all sorts of things, biopsies, little skin tests, little procedures at your doctors that were free, medications that have been dropped off the PBS, others have been put on the PBS, but the prices have gone up. Oh my God, a troll from last night's back. Oh no. Oh dear, oh dear. I had, on my personal page last night, I was talking about a troll that was, considers that people should not be allowed to even buy a TV on Social Security. All right, her attitude was, it angers me that people over here on welfare have huge flat screen TVs and all the other latest technology and games. They have subscription TV, expensive tattoos, and can afford booze and drugs on top of, wait for it, having their rent and bills paid for them. I don't know where these people get their delusional ideas, right? Oh, and, you know, she's jealous because she can't afford any of that. For a start, rent and bills are not paid for you. Anyway, I did quite a if you want to go onto my own page, feel free, because I had a couple of goes at her last night. I mean, it was 1:26 a.m. in the morning, I remember. She decided to play Let's Troll, so I decided to play Let's Video and Let's Name and Shame the Troll, because I get a bit like that. I've lost my patience with these people. This is a genuine account, right? You know, there was another one on the page as well, but it's a fake account. But, you know, on one hand, she's saying you should be allowed to spend as you like, as you require. On another hand, she's saying that people like me shouldn't be allowed to have a TV, let alone have Netflix. I don't have Netflix anyway, but not allowed to have the option. Oddly enough, Foxtel that's $100 a month is approved on Indu, but Netflix at $10 a month is not. See where, you know, but I didn't like her language. If you're a habitual claimer, and I pressed her on that several times, and she's talking about people who claim benefits that don't want to work, are habitual claimers. You apply for your Social Security once. right? Not habitually. And if you get approved and you're eligible, end of. It's your money. It is an inalienable right under our law in this country. It is international human rights, right to Social Security, Article 9, okay, that of the Human Rights Convention, of which Australia is ratified to. So, yeah, if anybody says, oh, blah, 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 just remind them. As a citizen, it's your right to be able to claim for Social Security. All right. Anne-Marie Kittle says, we have paid our taxes from all our working life. How dare she even think we shouldn't be getting a pension? Precisely, right? But people on Social Security pay taxes every day too. And let's have a look at this. $169 billion welfare spend, which incorporates age pensions as well, right, returns to the government $750 billion in revenue. That's not a bad profit. That's $550 billion or whatever it is. I don't know, brain's not working. It's a huge amount of profit, isn't it? So Social Security is your economic stabiliser for your small businesses. And the idea is, and it's not supposed to be as low as what it is now, okay? But the idea with that is it keeps inflation down, right? It creates employment by keeping small family businesses open, right? And in turn, those businesses pay more taxes and the employees pay taxes. We all pay GST. The excise on petrol at the moment is 46 cents a litre. It doesn't matter whether you're on youth allowance, job seeker, age pension, disability, carers, or you're working full-time earning $500,000 a year. You put that pump in your car, you're paying 46 cents a litre in fuel excise. We all pay stamp duty or import duties, export duties, depending on what we're buying, on top of the GST on the products. If you smoke cigarettes, you're copped with federal taxes, state taxes, import duties, right, GST, and a whole lot of other stuff. So, you know, it's crazy. It really is. It's crazy. So, but this woman, she had a go at me last night, and she eventually answered the question about habitual claimer, has been on the dole for most of their lives, able to work, just can't be asked. That's her attitude. Then she says you shouldn't be dictated to where you shop. That's not right. But what you can spend the taxpayers' money on, there should be restrictions for some habitual claimants. It's like, oh my God, here we go again. This is what I deal with on TikTok, on other pages. It's like, that's ridiculous. So, would you like to hear my reply? I don't normally do this on this page. I do it on my own page. Okay? My reply to her at 1:30 this morning was, and who made you God? Because I just don't have any more, I'm not being nice anymore, okay? Stripping legal protections away from Australian citizens, stealing 80% of their legal income under Australian law and handing it to a private company to own, right, and control people's lives with breaching international and domestic human rights. Define habitual claimers. People with disabilities stuck on job seeker who cannot work. There's 376,000 people in that predicament right now. Okay? Oldies pushed out of the workforce that no one wants to employ. The biggest cohort of unemployed people at the moment are women over 55. Go figure. Mostly single women too. They're also the biggest at-risk group for homelessness. Okay? Kat Campbell will be your it'll be your connection. So, and then I go on to say, oldies pushed out of the workforce that no one wants to employ because of the ageism that we have in this country. Students trying to go to uni or get a job. Again, ageism, classism, having a go at our kids all the time. People on payments pay taxes, and spending their piddly income within your community makes a profit for the government. With 6.2 million people on payments, how much money do you think your local shops would lose And how many job losses when you want to stop people having a TV, going to a movie, buying a takeaway. You do know that everyone on Job Seeker works for the dole, 25 hours a week, no award wages, no workers' comp and no superannuation contributions. And then you've got your over 55s and 60s that have to do their between 25 and 15 hours a week working in a charity shop for free type thing to get their piddly little amount. And there's no consideration for their health and their broken knees and their arthritis and everything else that goes with getting older. You know, yeah, so these people, they don't get it. People on Social Security have to do course after course after course. Job agency get paid every time you do the course. My daughter's done the same damn course 4 times. Job agency got paid for it 4 times. And the 5th time, my daughter just turned around and said, I'm not doing it again. It's the same damn course. You just keep changing the name and the location. I mean, they tried to send my daughter to Ipswich from Brisbane, but they wouldn't help her out with transport costs. She was on youth allowance at the time of $309 a fortnight. I said, how are you going to get there? It's $12 each way on the train, 5 days a week. And job agency wouldn't help. You know, she got out of it and she got it moved on the grounds that she couldn't get there. Plus it was over an hour and a half away with no transport. It's ridiculous. You know, these people don't have a clue. I don't know what age bracket this lady's in. Obviously never had to deal with Centrelink or job agencies or Parents Next or the cashless debit card or any of the punitive other stuff that they're putting people through. Do you know what I mean? But I know one thing, the cashless debit card can be detrimental to a local economy. Very much so, because it's funneling the money through the multinationals and out of the local economy. It's going to have an impact. That's why you have empty shops in Kalgoorlie. That's why you have empty shops. And 1/3 of the population have moved out of Ceduna. That's why you have empty shops. Right? And markets that end up with half of the stallholders that they had because the other half can't function, not enough cash flow. Okay? I just piled in on everything on her, you know what I mean? You know, it benefits LNP pro-businesses and multinationals that rob us of taxes and rampant wage theft on the staff. And many of the staff work. And this is it. This is another statistic I picked up this morning. 9.5% is the underemployment rate. So that equates to around about 1.1 million people, roughly. All right, but you know when they talk about the unemployment rate, and they're trying to say we're at 4.9%. Okay, of the 800,000, it's not even that. We'll just use this as a figure. 800,000 people on Job Seeker at the moment that are currently looking for work. Okay. There is only 86,000 jobs actually available. I didn't, you know, according to the seasonal stats at the moment. And even then, there was only 232,000 jobs available in October. Bear in mind, they're not full-time stable jobs. And you have 800,000 people looking for work. You know, and then you add in 9.5% of the population that is working, that doesn't get enough hours, that is still on Social Security, and you end up with a situation where there's one job to every 13 people. You know, that's crazy, isn't it? One thing I want to say on that, people who are working in gig economy, Uber, food delivery, all the crappy jobs where you're getting paid commission, where once upon a time Centrelink didn't count commission jobs as jobs because they were commission, they weren't stable, right? People in low paid income and working 6 to 10 hours a week because employers then don't have to do the superannuation contributions if you're working less than 10 hours a week. That's why they employ multiple people under 10 hours a week, so they don't have to pay the super contributions. This primarily impacts women, of course, and the result is that women end up with less super or no super, you know. So it gets all really technical, but that 9.5% of the workforce out there is at risk of being put on a cashless debit card. And they're working. And this is where the corporate welfare sector rips off taxpayers' money. You've got big corporations that deliberately underemploy staff, knowing that those people have to claim Social Security in order to survive. Who's the scrounger here? Certainly not the worker, but the Tory Conservative LNP One Nation would have you believe that the worker is at fault, right? So when it's the companies relying on Social Security to make up wages, basically, they don't have to pay wages if they can get the government to pay welfare. A con job, right? And in return, they get their tax breaks, and then the LNP government changed the workers' protections in the company's favour and things like that. You know what I mean? So there's a lot that goes into this. But 9.5% of our population is at risk of being put on a cashless debit card, and they work. People need to understand that. Not just all about people out of work. Carers, disability support pensioners, and yes, age pensioners in Cape York. How dare they give them a life sentence? There's no age cap. They can't get off of it. And you hear Anne Ruston bleating, oh, it's about getting people off of welfare into work. Well, people with disabilities, their carers and age pensioners can't do that, can they? So that's where you know it's a scam. It's a trap. And that's it, It's just disgusting. We need to get rid of this government, absolutely. We must get rid of this government. All right. I'm just reading the comments here. Oh, this woman's attitude stinks. I haven't got to her comment yet. But I put it to her. Would you be happy to treat a grandchild finishing high school, going on to youth allowance, and they're bang, straight on the cashless debit card? Because I can tell you now, I've had grandparents ring me up who are not happy about that happening to their grandkids in Harvey Bay. Okay? Not happy about it at all. Stripped of their rights and segregated from their friends and social interactions, unable to pay their board, their rent and their bond, having to quit uni or due to not being able to access textbooks and use public transport. In my region, you can't use the cashless debit card on a bus. In all the other regions where the cashless debit card is, there is no public transport. Okay? And in 3 of the regions, you can't use a taxi. Go figure. You can use a taxi in Hinkler. Remember, we're the token white community. So 81% of us up here that are on the cashless debit card are white. All right, so therefore, they get things a lot easier than people in East Kimberley, Kalgoorlie and Ceduna, Cape York. Because, racial profiling, not, It's obvious. I've just seen, by the way, people can access extra funds and get approved for things. And I look at the other side of the country and they can't even apply. And they don't know. They're not given any information. They're not shown how to do things. Deliberately excluded. So I'm trying to point out to this woman, how do you think it feels? Now, there's a lady on TikTok. She's a doctor. But before becoming a doctor, she was living in a basics card trial site in Sydney. So that would be Bankstown, which would be a rough area. And she said it. And while she was studying, going through medical school, she was on the basics card. And the biggest issue she had with it was her social interactions with her peers. She couldn't go out with her friends, right? Because it couldn't be used anywhere. This has an impact on people's psychological growth, social interaction, right? When you're excluding kids coming out of school, young adolescents, they need to learn how to become an adult. They need to learn how to be a part of a community and a society And they need to be able to have that interaction, even if it is going to the pub or the nightclub or going and playing some sports or being part of another group with their own age group and their peers. Forced financial control, income management stops this. But it stops this earlier, actually, because I had a parent from WA who couldn't use her card in her town or at the school. Both of her children were missing out on stuff at the school. So it was impacting them at 5 years old, being excluded from things which are, I'm not a psychologist, but trying to socially exclude children from that age so that they don't form any bonds or connections or learn how to deal in a, what would I put it, competitive situation with other kids, because they're excluded from 5 years old. But then again, when you deny parents the ability to pay for childcare, you are excluding them from the day they can walk, right? And if you want to push it even further, when the card declines at the supermarket and you're trying to buy bread, milk, nappies and formula, you're depriving them from day one. Okay? It's disgusting what's going on with this card. It really is. I hadn't intended to stay on this long. We got stuck into this lady's thing and I was talking to her about things, you know, my replies to this troll on this other page. And I tried to point it out to her. Tell me why a kid couldn't buy a bottle of water at soccer. How humiliating for him. Playing sport, stops for half-time break. There's a catering van. Mum goes to buy him a bottle of water in front of all of his teammates. Declines because she didn't know that the FPOS machine for that catering van belonged to Sporties in Bundaberg, which is a band merchant. So the kid was embarrassed in front of all of his teammates at half-time, right? Not able to get a bottle of water. I don't like people who think that's okay. I think they're disgusting. I think they're sadistic, and I think they're cruel, and I think they're narcissistic and selfish. That's it. And I could not understand how any woman could treat a child that way and think that's acceptable, because I don't. I don't. I'd be running around trying to borrow some change off anybody real quick. Oh, I'd be so upset too that my child had been humiliated in that way in front of his peers and his teammates. But that's what happens. They get bullied at school. When a 7-year-old goes to their mum and says, "Mummy, are we poor?" Oh, how does the parent feel? Look at our video with Karen's interview last week. Her kids have suffered tremendously from her being forced onto the cashless debit card. Do you know what I mean? I had a go at her and I said, I'm over people like you who seem to think me, and I'm 53. Oh my God, I'm 53 in 7 days' time. All right, need to be controlled, owned by a private company and have money made off of my poverty. And you would deny me watching a movie on Netflix because I can't afford to go out anywhere. You know, worse still, you don't even like the idea of me having a TV. What are we supposed to do? Sit here and rot? You know, no outings. And I said to her, stop referring to people, as in Australians, as habitual users of a legal social security system. One that is under Australian law is an inalienable right as a citizen. It's the government who decides that you're eligible. Once you become eligible, it's your money under law, unless you're on a cashless debit card. And then they exempted you from the Protections of Payments Act under the Social Security Act, Commonwealth Act 1991-1999, right? That's supposed to protect your income from being taken by a third-party private entity without your consent. See how they got round the law? They didn't repeal it. It's still there. It protects every other Social Security recipient in this country unless you're on a cashless debit card. They just use a legislative instrument to exempt you from the protection of that law. They went round it, right? And I think it sucks that you can have an LNP government that will not stand by rule of law. We have rule of law in this country for a reason, but they want to make it for only the select few can have rule of law, non-discrimination, blah, 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 right? And everybody else, well, they'll just go around the laws. The Commonwealth Acts that they can't change, they'll find a way to go around them, or they'll just ignore them, or issue letters of no action, so you can't litigate against a company such as Indu when they breach your consumer rights. Section B12 of the Consumer Law Act. You know what I mean? Oh, it's just crazy. So, somebody else had a few words to her. Alright, so she's still going on about habitual claimers. Oh, forget off. You know what I mean? Oh, she's in the UK. Oh, forget it. She's brainwashed Tory Murdoch special here. Sorry, I can't deal with this. She reckons I twisted her words. She's coming at it from the very Tory aspect. I'm not even going to bother with her. We are not in the UK. Alright? You know. But she's against the card in principle. The third-party company needs to be fired. Actually, it needs to be stopped being a department of the government. It's not a department of the government anyway. And if the taxpayers are to be expected to pay for all of this, it should be run by government. Nobody else. You know what I mean? And it should be audited. So I'll give her a due there. But she hasn't got a clue about Australian citizens' rights. And I don't think it's fair that she equates our social security system to an even worse, crueler system, right? Because she's brainwashed by the Tories in the UK, which is even worse. Right? Oh dear. Anyway, so she's gone on about, I know way too many people who know how to work the system and get everything handed to them. She doesn't have a clue about their own system. I wouldn't be proud of 1 in every 4 children starving in England at the moment, with 4 million people in abject dire poverty and people dying on the streets. Don't get me started on the UK system. It's shocking. And it's where Scott Morrison got all of his ideas from, right, in regards to Ian Duncan Smith's austerity cuts that have killed 200,000 people with disabilities in the UK in the last 10 years of their Tory government, by cutting all of their equivalent of NDIS funding services, care services, mobilities, cutting. Every time they do a review on somebody's payments, disability payments, they actually cut the payment off while they do the review, and it can take 8 months to do the review. Now, people living in council housing in England pay council taxes and their rents, so they end up in debt and they end up being evicted. And in the UK, bailiffs come and they let you grab 1 bag of goods and they lock the door. They kick you out the street with a bag of stuff. Give you 1 hour to collect what you can, and they take the rest when they do that to you in the UK, because your goods and chattels are taken and sold to recoup the debts. When returned soldiers, same here, treated like crap, can't get the right payments, but in the UK are sanctioned for 13 weeks. And this one ended up in a court case because he was found 3 weeks later dead with no power, because a lot of people have the power, they have to pay their power by a meter box in their houses, and he didn't have the money. And he hadn't eaten for 3 weeks, according to the coroner's report, and he was a diabetic, and the only thing they found in his fridge was a vial of insulin. And he was a returned serviceman, a decorated medal holder and everything. They don't care in the UK. The Tories are shocking. And the Tory mentality towards people is horrendous. And it leeches here as well. You've only got to look at Scott Morrison's attitude. His own words. And the way he speaks of people on Social Security and pensioners. So, I'm just looking at comments here. We do need to get rid of the Murdoch monopoly. Every country that doesn't have Murdoch has such a better social security system. They look after their people so much better, so much more respect for their citizens. You know what I mean? And that's it, you know. Whereas here, it's all about division and putting people against people all the time. You know, the colour of my hair would be something for somebody to nitpick about. It's not good enough for somebody, and oh, yeah. But, yeah, I'm not even going to answer her. After all of that, I'm not answering her. She doesn't make my time. I don't have time for Tories. I could be Albanese and say, I fight Tories. Because that's what we've got here, right-wing Tories. So, anyway, oops. Oh, I just discovered I can actually answer comments. But you don't want me doing that because I'd be here every day, one letter at a time. Any questions? No more questions in the comments. That's all right. All right, guys. Well, I might leave it at that. I just thought I'd just touch base. And give an update on what happened with the lady with her rent yesterday. And I'll go back to doing what I was doing. Hang on. So Kate Campbell says, are there any signs people in Hinkler have had a gut full of it? They've sat down. Since the vote went through in December, that gutted everybody, Kate Campbell. That psychologically gutted people. A lot of families I speak to use workarounds. So parents, they'll pay other people's bills, they'll pay other people's shopping to get around it. And they've just, a lot of the time they're under so much stress, they're broke anyway. Remember, Hinkler region is the most disadvantaged region now in the whole of this country. We have the highest youth suicide and we have the highest homeless rate in the country now. Right? People are demoralised. People are divided. And then you've got the likes of Pauline Hanson, Craig Kelly, Matt Canavan, George Christensen, right? And a whole lot of right-wing Christian nut jobs, right? Screaming about forced mandates and blah, blah, blah. The whole region is a mess. Okay? After Christmas, again, depending on weather and my own health, I will try to go back out. Because I had planned, I've got a site on Lennox Street that I can use. And I can put up a gazebo and a stall and stuff like that. And I had planned to do that. But my own health at the moment, I've had to take it easy. Okay, I had a wobbly about 2 weeks ago. I'm on blood pressure meds. I'm waiting for an MRI. Okay, so I've got to take it easy. But I want to get back out and talk to people against, about the cashless debit card. And we'll see what happens from there. Until I can talk to the card holders again face to face. And I've got a survey sheet that I've got of my own that they can fill out. But the last time I spoke to people, they were so demoralised. They'd given up. And when you First Nations people, they have been dispossessed and trampled all over for 230 years. So, people don't have the fight in them, in that respect. And that's why I fight. And that's why I try and encourage card holders to come out, and I'll stand there and I'll support them. If they don't have the energy, like the lady yesterday, she's so frustrated, she's so worn out after nearly 3 years of this bullshit and losing a house already and going through all the rubbish that they've put her through. And she's emotionally worn out. But she came to me in inbox and explained everything, sent me the screenshots. I said, that's right, that's fine. And I said to her, why don't you put your shirt on, because she's got a shirt. Why don't you get angry and go down to your local Centrelink and stand outside of Centrelink, and we'll get the media to go down and demand that they pay your rent. But she's not able to do that at the moment. And I understand and I appreciate that. People are just trying to survive. This government has got everybody living in survival mode, living in poverty. And your number one priority when you're living in that state is to look after you and yours. You know what I mean? And I understand and appreciate that. From the card holder's perspective, life must suck. Because it's hard enough if you're not on a card, but if you're on a base rate youth allowance trying to get through on $359 a fortnight, or an independent living rate of $620 a fortnight, you're trying to pay $600 in rent a fortnight, and you're trying to look for jobs, or you're studying, you're trying to get through university, and you're living on bloody noodles. Kelly Marie says, kick people down, kicking them while they're down long enough, and eventually they'll get too exhausted to stand back up. Two things happen. They get exhausted and they give up, or one day they just get so bloody angry they stand up and say, I've had a gutful. That's right. But when you've got kids to consider and you've got a family to worry about and you're just trying to survive, we appreciate where people are coming from in this situation. So I'm happy to keep relaying information. I'm happy to keep telling people stories. And hopefully we can get rid of the LNP and One Nation and all of the right-wing idiots that want this at the next election. ALP will scrap the card. All right. I haven't spent 6 years screaming, yelling, crying down the phone to their staff and have multiple meetings with politicians. I haven't wasted all that time, you know what I mean? In the last 3 years, it took me 5 years to meet Linda Burney. Got there in the end, Excuse me. And I ended up meeting her twice in like a 3 months window. I met Bill Shorten twice, and I hope to meet Albanese eventually, but I have been, so was Amanda. We had a Zoom meeting with Albanese's office and we went through what they want to do and what they're doing. And yeah, they will scrap the card, repeal the legislation and cancel the contract with India. People going, oh, but they might change. No, they're not. They've got no intention of changing. And then in December 22, when the sunset clause comes off the basics card, because it's set on a different legislative platform, they're going to get rid of the compulsory basics card. You can't ask more than that. I know that they are looking at a program for people that want some form of income management, because you do have some people that do want, how can I put it, I've seen communities where half the community is going, I don't want my basics card anymore. And another elder stands up and says, I like my basics card, but I want it not to be compulsory. I want it to be changed, right? So that system's going, and there'll be something in place with informed consent for people that want to use some form of income management program. That's a big difference. Voluntary with informed consent, right, means that you can make a decision and have all of the information laid out in front of you. Not like with the cashless debit card where you don't get a choice. You don't get informed consent, right? You don't get all the pros and cons laid out in front of you for you to make a decision. You don't get told that the minute you're contracted without your consent that you've lost your consumer rights, your privacy rights, that you lost your protections under the Social Security Act, right? And you don't get told that your international human rights are being ignored and breached. So, yeah. So, hang on. I don't know what happened there. So Melissa Mascord said it helps to know who to vote for and who not to vote for. There are a lot of people that are voting but have no idea who they're voting for or how to vote, so they just mark anything. I'm glad I heard you say a couple of names just then. I was going to vote for them and everyone is confused on who to vote for. We don't know their agenda. I can tell you their agenda. They're screaming about freedoms as they lead people to vote for parties like theirs that have already voted away their freedoms in the parliament using legislative powers to do it. All done and dusted. And these people, if they vote for those parties, that will return an LNP government. But you'll have a very hostile right-wing Senate that when Pauline Hanson puts up a proposal to cut people under 25s off of Social Security completely, no dole, that's what Mark Latham was wanting yesterday, and Jason Falinski from the Liberal Party backs him up, right? It'll be a case of no dole or start, you know, get a job or starve, but there isn't the jobs. So you'll take any kind of work and you'll be exploited. What about workers' protections and minimum wages? This is what's at risk here. If you've got a right-wing government with right-wing senators in the Senate, you can pass the worst bills. We don't want that. We don't want that. So ALP1 will scrap the card. Greens have been fighting against income management for 15 years, and they've stood with us as well. Rachel Seward put up a magnificent fight against the cashless debit card for the last 6 years until she retired. Right, so you've got the Greens, and I've been speaking a lot with an independent called Australian Progressives, because his platform is no card, anti-poverty, climate change issues, etc. Do you know what I mean? All the rest that I'm seeing out there are shill parties. Australia One hasn't even got himself registered. Ricardo Bossy, whatever. Right? Clive Palmer's in this for the mining. Okay, they're not in it for the people. You don't hear them talking about what their social welfare policy is going to be and how they're going to protect Medicare, do you? You don't hear none of that. So this is where we've got an issue, okay? So, if you want to get rid of the cashless debit card, we don't have an option. Irrespective of what your political leanings are, there's too much up for grabs to be lost. Everybody being stuck on a cashless debit card, we don't want that. Medicare being completely gutted and privatised and turned into the US healthcare system, we don't want that. Right? NDIS being butchered and people having to have these horrible bloody assessments as their funding and all their assistance is cut. We don't want that. That will kill people with disabilities. It's guaranteed to be done, proven in the UK already. Okay. Meanwhile, private companies that have all these contracts make a lot of money off of our government. All right. We need to protect our aged care sector. It's not good enough having 16,000 aged pensioners dying waiting for home care. 16,000 someone's grandma or grandpa, someone's mum or dad died waiting for aged care last year. That's not good enough, right? Killing people in the name of austerity because you want to blow the money on car park rorts, or you want to just give it to selected electorates. You know what I mean? You want to give the local private school another orchestra pit or another hall or another pool, so all their students can have all brand new computers. But your local public school down the road, your teachers are putting their hand in their own pockets to pay for supplies, and they can't even get air conditioners. We don't want that. We don't want that kind of living. We need housing. We need public housing, right? LNP's got no intention of creating any form of affordable housing, and we're in a housing crisis, in a great big bubble at the moment that is exploding so bad that a lot of people are being asked to stump up 6 months rent in advance to try and get into a place. And because people have done this and they've stumped up the money, it's made the problem worse because the greed gets more. Oh, we got 12 months, we got 6 months money out of them. For a house in Perth, a lady who I know is homeless with a couple of kids with her husband works. Somebody said to her, why don't you pay 6 months? And they actually do have the money in the bank. For a house that's $450 to $500 a week, that's $17,500 to stump up for 6 months rent in advance just to try and get into a house. It's ludicrous. If the LNP get in, half the population is going to be on the street, working 2 and 3 jobs, 4 jobs, gig economy, trying to scratch a living, right? Worse, if Pauline Hanson was to ever, because she has raised this in the Parliament before, cutting off people under 25s. There should be no dole, no youth allowance, no study payments, right? And then for those over 25, okay, for those over 25, One Nation wanted only 6 months payments, like they have in America. So you get 6 months worth of Social Security, even though in America, they pay Social Security insurance for years. They pay it out of every pay packet. Okay? Yet they only get 6 months worth of Social Security if they become unemployed. And at the end of that 6 months, they're cut off completely, and then they're put onto food stamps or whatever, and they end up homeless. And then they end up having to work while they're living in a tent on the streets. You've got 40 million people living in abject poverty in America. You know, millions and millions of people living on the streets. It's ridiculous. We don't want that. We don't want that for our kids. We want our kids to have that free TAFE that Labor's offering so they can get an education. Money being invested to, so that people can prosper. Invest people in people. I can't handle the Thatcherism of we have to have an economy over a society. So the money and the big end of town is all that matters and the people don't. And I want to know why we're $1 trillion in debt when they've cut every damn service to save money. Where did the money go? People need to remember 2013-14 when Abbott got in. Think back to what they cut. Aboriginal legal services, Aboriginal medical services. I think they took something like $70 billion out of funding out of Aboriginal services. They took something like $300 million or something. It was a huge amount of money out of all the charities. They slashed all like food banks funding and Anglicare's funding. And at one stage there, Anglican nearly had to shut down their soup kitchens and over 100 shelters just in New South Wales alone. Domestic violence and homeless shelters had to close. There was a brilliant employment program up on the Sunshine Coast. And I remember the young man going on to Q&A and begging Christopher Pyne, please don't close us down. They'd been there for 30 years and had a 98% success rate with getting troubled kids off of streets, into school, finishing school, getting into a job and getting them housed. Right? Because it was an employment program that empowered people. And they were begging, please don't cut us. And they did. They chopped them off. Serena Rosso got all the funding. Simple as that for your big stick job agencies. Do you know what I mean? They cut anything that was really good. Don't forget, they cut $157 million out of Headspace in 2015. And then they go, oh, we're putting money back into mental health at $50 million. But hang on a minute, you still haven't put back what you took out. They rely on the fact you forget. And they do it over and over and over. And there's plenty of stuff. Look what they've done to Medicare. Look what they're doing right now. So there's lots of reasons not to vote right wing, isn't there? Labor, Greens, Australian Progressives. That's it. Right? But you want to get rid of the card, we don't have an option. It doesn't matter what party you'd normally vote for. ALP1 needs to be on the top of that ticket. It's the only way to get rid of the cashless debit card once and for all and to protect our kids all the way up to our grandparents. Right? Protect our human rights, our legal rights as citizens, and most of all, our dignity. Okay? Anyway, I'm going to go. because I'm pretty sure it's tea time for some people. Yep, and I know it's tea time for me. So I'll talk to you guys another day, and I'll have to go through some of these comments here, because some of them we don't normally have debates on the page about Nuremberg trials and stuff like that. No, we don't do conspiracy theories or pseudo law, sovereign citizen stuff. Sorry, we don't do Gap Party stuff here. That's another one. We don't do Gap Party fake pseudo law, okay? We just don't do conspiracies. We don't do QAnon, right? We don't do any of that stuff. All of our research is fact-checked. Everything we've done over the last 6 years is regards to legislation in law, not fairy tales created by people who want to scare people. All right? Simple as that. Anyway, I'll talk to you guys later. See ya.